Hi, third graders. Thank you for joining our lesson. If you were able to, if you missed it for some reason, I have a recording of it. The lesson is about a story called The Invisible Boy. And I think it's a really powerful story. It's something that some of you may be able to relate to and hopefully learn something from as well. Let me share my screen. I've made a larger copy of the story for us, and I'll go ahead and get the slideshow started. So, The Invisible Boy. Basically today we'll be talking about words like included and excluded and what those mean, why people leave out or exclude others, and some things that you can do to make sure that others feel included and accepted. Because I think it's really important, is what can you do, what can I do to make sure others feel welcome? Based on the title, what do you think the story is about? The Invisible Boy. And what does it mean to feel invisible? To me, it means that it's like people ignore you. They don't acknowledge you being there, so you feel like no one sees you. But that's how I would define it. How would you? The invisible boy. Can you see Brian, the invisible boy? Even Mrs. Carlotti has trouble noticing him in her classroom. She's too busy dealing with Nathan and Sophie. And when you think about it, there are lots of kids in a classroom, sometimes as many as 26 or 28. So you may feel invisible sometimes. Nathan has problems with what Mrs. Carlotti calls volume control. He uses his outside voice inside too much, and Sophie whines and complains when she doesn't get her way. Nathan and Sophie take up a lot of space. Brian doesn't. When the bell rings for recess, Micah and JT take turns choosing kids for their kickball teams. The best players get picked first, then the best friends of the best players, then the friends of the best players. Only Brian is left, still waiting and hoping. Can you imagine how Brian is feeling right now? All the other students have been picked, and he is still waiting. And I notice he's still smiling. He's still trying to find the good. JT glances in Brian's direction and just as quickly looks away. We've got enough players for each team, he tells the others. Let's play ball. I think JT might have done that on purpose. What do you think? He looks and looks away quickly. He knows Brian wants to play, but he ignores him. In the cafeteria, Madison and her friends talk about her birthday party. The rope swing over the pool was awesome, says JT. Yeah, so was the water slide, added Fiona. That was the best pool party ever. I'm so glad you guys had fun, says Madison. Everybody did except Brian. He wasn't invited. And there he is feeling invisible. What do you think about having that conversation in front of Brian? They were all there, they had fun, but he wasn't invited. Do you think it was right to have a conversation about the party in front of him? At choosing time, while the other kids played board games and read, Brian sits at his table doing what he loves to do. He loves drawing. He draws fire-breathing dragons, scaling tall buildings, space aliens, locked in intergalactic battles, greedy pirates digging for treasure, and superheroes with the power to make friends wherever they go. Do you think that's a little indication of how Brian feels? Superheroes who can make friends. I think Brian wants a friend. On Monday morning, Mrs. Carlotti introduces Justin, a new student, to the class. Brian smiles shyly at him. Some of the other kids sneak looks at Justin, trying to figure out if he's cool enough to be their friend. They haven't quite made up their minds yet. Now, to me, that's something ding, ding, ding in my brain that bothers me already. Is he cool enough to be friends? I know that's not how STAR students would think. We would think, wow, welcome to our school. We're so glad you're here. And they would make him feel welcome. I know you would. At lunch, Madison and JT watch Justin eat with chopsticks. "What's that?" asks Madison as she points at Justin's food. And he tries to say it, bulgogi? Bul what? And then they talk about what it is. Whoops. It's a Korean beef. It's something that, oh geez. They won't eat it. They don't want to eat it. The kids laughed, all of them except for Brian. He sits there and wondering what's worse, being made fun of or being invisible. Yeah, so they're making fun of the student the first day he gets there. The next day, when Justin goes to his cubby to put away his backpack, he notices a piece of paper with his name on it. "Justin, I think the bulgogi looked good. Brian, yum." What a way to make someone feel included. What a gesture on Brian's part, leaving him a note, making him feel good. And you can see by Justin's expression, he's smiling. At morning recess, Brian finds a piece of chalk on the ground and starts drawing away. And he's drawing by himself because no one's probably letting him play with them or inviting him or including him. "You're Brian, right?" says Justin. "Yeah. Thanks for the note." "Hey, Justin," Emilio calls out from the tetherball court, "you're up next." "Sorry, gotta go," says Justin. "By the way, that's a really cool drawing," he adds before taking off. So Justin, the new kid, is now reaching out to Brian. He sees him. Back in class, Mrs. Carlotti asks the kids to team up in 2s or 3s for a special project. The kids scurry around the room to pair off. Brian heads towards Justin. "I'm already with Justin," says Emilio. "Find someone else." Brian looks at the floor, wishing he could draw a hole right there to swallow him up. Can you imagine? He wants to get away. His feelings are hurt so badly. But Justin steps in. "Mrs. Carlotti said we could have up to 3 people in our group. We're only 2. Come on, Emilio. Let him work with us." "Okay, I guess." And if you notice, look at Brian's color. He is going from being invisible to starting to become visible because others are recognizing him and including him. Just a simple thing by saying, "Hey, come join us." Mrs. Carlotti gives the class directions for the project. Your assignment is to work together to write a story about what you see in that photo. Use your imagination and have fun. Whoa, cool, says Emilio. What kind of people do you think would live in a house like that? I don't know, but I bet Brian could draw them to go with our story, said Justin. Brian smiles as he takes out his lucky pen. Look at the color filling up in Brian. Justin keeps reaching out. I know that Brian could do it. Give Brian a chance. There they are working together, drawing, creating, performing. At lunchtime again, Brian's least favorite part of the day, another 20 long minutes of kids talking and laughing with everyone else but him. Brian, he hears someone shout, hey, Brian, over here. Brian turns and sees Justin waving him over. Emilio nods at Brian as he makes room for him at the table. Doesn't this make you feel good, boys and girls, as you're hearing this story unfold about the kindness of one person changing the life of another? Maybe, just maybe, Brian is not so invisible after all. So in this story, Brian felt invisible when his friends left him out, and being left out means he wasn't included or invited to join. His classmates kicked kickball, they had parties, they did all these things without him. How did it feel? How did being left out make Brian feel? How does it make you feel? I know I have been left out many times in my life. I know what it feels like, and I've seen others left out as well. I would never want anyone to have that feeling. or experienced that, and I know you wouldn't either, boys and girls. So if you have a moment and you want to pause the video and talk about a time when you felt left out. Justin, Brian's new friend, taught us that it only takes one person and one small act of kindness to make someone feel included. One person, one act. Brian, come join our group. When Brian felt included, he didn't feel invisible anymore. He felt like he was noticed, cared for, and loved. When we include others, we show them we care by asking them to sit with us, to work with us, to eat with us, to play with us. So boys and girls, when you have a chance, ask other children to play. Whether it's a sport, whether it's at recess, whether it's eating together, whether it's a group in the classroom, working on a project, reading in a group. Think about how it feels to be included and make sure that all around you are included as well. If you want to pause the video and talk about a time or a way you could include someone else, feel free. And then here's some situations. Think about what would you do in this situation. In the top quarter, there are some kids reading and laughing. Brian is left out on the side. What would you do? In the top right, there are some kids at recess. Brian is left out. What would you do in this situation? In the bottom left, they're in a gym or some kind of sports activity, and Brian is left out. What would you do? And finally, there's a group of kids hanging out. Maybe they're getting ready to go outside to recess. What would you do if you saw someone being left out? That is all I have for today. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being here. Thank you for maybe being the one person to do one kind act, to include someone else, and to make their day. See you next time.